Hello, this is Angela with Parker's Permaculture. Welcome back to Hausfrau Friday. This is the regular weekly segment where I talk about domestic issues and the way that they weave into the pursuit of sustainable living. Now, my necklace is crooked. Okay, now, still crooked. Now, I'm filming on a Saturday today. I'm sorry this video is going to come out a little bit late. I spent the whole day yesterday just on the phone dealing with my dad's care team and a bunch of things that were all going sideways. And before I knew it, it was too dark to film out. And I don't have like fancy lighting and I don't have a set studio. Obviously, I am filming in the sunroom, which is overtaken by Ruth's houseplant collection. You should see the table behind me. In fact, I'll show you later in the video. Everything is covered in houseplants because that's something she really loves and is passionate about. So an area that used to be the family nature shelf and have books on it has become a space where she can pursue her own interests. And that brings me to the subject of today's video. I was listening to a podcast, You're Wrong About, which I know that a number of my subscribers enjoy and listen to. I'd gotten really far behind on it and I was catching up while I was doing yard work. And the host, Sarah Marshall, I love her. I love her. She's a fellow Portlander and I really enjoy her, her perspective on things, her thoughtful analysis of different issues. And the episode that I listened to was on Martha Stewart, and I'm a huge Martha Stewart fan. In fact, in high school, I subscribed to her magazine. This is dating me a little bit, in the 90s. And also in college, I subscribed to her magazine. And I have to say, I looked forward to the arrival of every monthly issue, probably more than I did going to my classes. Back then, while I was really interested in environmental issues, I was really interested in gardening and starting to dive into permaculture, I also had this pull toward everything domestic. I really wanted to have kids. I really enjoyed the art of homemaking. I really enjoyed crafting. I learned to knit. I got better at sewing. I was really pulled in kind of two different directions. And what's been wonderful is as the years have gone by, I have learned that I can synchronize those things and mesh really nicely. And I can pursue both. I don't have to pick one or the other. Anyway, back to this podcast episode. It was all about the dramas of Martha Stewart, and I related very much to Sarah, the hostess, and her guest, because I am of a similar age and had a similar interest in Martha Stewart. And her projection of domesticity and her projection and communication that domestic arts are highly skilled and they are something that you can enjoy not only doing, but also enjoy watching others do them as well. One of the things that I always felt pressured growing up is to have a house that looks incredibly immaculate. As I've said in my other videos, my mother was the consummate homemaker. Our house was always gorgeous. There was not a speck of dust. My mom always said, you can tell how clean my house is by looking at my baseboards. There was no mess anywhere. That came with challenges as a child living in a house like that. But I was presented with this picture of just perfection when it came to domestic issues. She was just perfect in the kitchen and perfect in terms of cleaning and in terms of how she decorated her home. And she was the perfect hostess, having lots of parties, dishes and punch bowls and, cloth, linen napkins and everything to host amazing parties. Folks would go to parties that my mom threw and just say, like, there's no party like the party that your mom throws. It's gorgeous. Everything looks like it's straight out of the pages of Martha Stewart Living. So that's probably why Martha Stewart Living had such an appeal for me, because it was like the house that I grew up in, but just more, right? More spectacular. Turkey Hill, Martha's home, was just such a beautiful property. And she bought it as a basically derelict property and fixed it up herself into something amazing. And so Martha always appealed to me because she was from a working class family and she created her own brand, and she also created her own home and her own domestic perfection out of something run down and worn out. And I just saw her as this really self-made woman, which she really is. But I also felt burdened a little bit with the idea that we have to have domestic perfection. And I am not somebody who is incredibly tidy. And I have 5 people in my household that are I should say, I have 4 people in my household that are not even remotely tidy, and 1 other person who is somewhat tidy. And we just don't live like the house I grew up in. And I've always felt this pressure and this, I don't want to say shame, but maybe shame that my house didn't look like it was out of the pages of Martha Stewart Living. It didn't look like the house that I grew up in. We have so many more people. When I was growing up, my siblings are much older than me, and they were in college and graduate school. And so it was basically me and my dad and my mom, and the house was very neat and tidy and quiet. Well, there's 6 people in a much smaller house, a house half the size of the one I grew up in, the ones I grew up in, because I was an Air Force brat. And we just have a lot of stuff, a lot of hobbies, a lot of interests. And it's not possible for us to pursue the things we want to pursue and have a house that looks like it's out of the pages of a magazine. And one of the things that Sarah Marshall was saying in this podcast about Martha Stewart Living is that she's always seen domesticity and the way you keep your home as something that works for you, and that it is not a performance for other people. And I think I've talked about this in past videos, but when she said it, I was just like, amen, sister. You know, that is exactly how I feel. It's so important for those of us who own homes, and especially those of us who are homemakers and can feel that judgment, both from the outside world and from ourselves, both from those cultural portrayals like the pages of Martha Stewart Living magazine. It's so important that we know that our home is for us. It's not for public consumption, much like our appearance is not for public consumption. How neat and tidy we keep our home is whatever is comfortable to us. And there's a huge range, a huge spectrum. Just like all our houses look different, our decorating styles look different, our tastes, our aesthetics are tailored to match us as individuals. Our home doesn't have to look the way that the cultural stereotype of how a home should look is portrayed. Sarah's saying, I wish we could all just, relax our standards a little bit and actually give everybody permission to say, you set your own standard for how you want to keep your house. For my mother, cleaning was a hobby, basically, that superseded other hobbies that she found she didn't have time for because she enjoyed cleaning and enjoyed having the display of a perfect home. I have way more other hobbies. I really appreciate Sarah's perspective and the fact that she was, vocalizing, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we all reserved judgment and we let everybody decide for themselves what their home looks like? That we don't need a domestic standard of perfection that we judge people against and we judge homes against. Your house should work for you. Your house is not a museum. Your house is not a burden to you. And while there can be an element of drudgery in housework, your house is a space that needs to feed you and needs to work for your life. If you don't want clean, pristine shelves because you love houseplants and you want to have 800 of them, if you find that your main hobby is not cleaning and you would rather have dust bunnies or, not perfect windowsills like I do, so that you can instead pursue things like playing more board games with your kids, going on more hikes as a family, reading more books and doing more craft projects, that's totally fine. I think Sarah's point was so valid and something that I know I have communicated a lot, but maybe not clearly enough, both to you all and to myself, which is that our homes don't have to meet a standard in order for them to be joyful places. And in fact, when we try to have them compared to some kind of ideal notion, it can really suck the joy out of our home spaces and no longer make them feel safe and comforting. What can we do to reduce the shame that people feel, the judgment that people feel when folks stop by and your house might be a mess? Or what can we do to say, actually, if your house is a mess all of the time and you're fine with that, that's totally okay. So I just want to encourage you that when you are thinking about how you run your household, when you're thinking about the fact that it may not be perfect, there may be piles of laundry on, the sofa, and there may be rugs that really need to be vacuumed, and you have other things going on in your life. If you're okay with that level of real lived-in houseness, that's totally fine. And I wish that we could shift the standard for everybody so that we as individuals, and perhaps this is where I am appealing more to the cohort of folks who watch my videos who are more into individualism and are more into kind of libertarianism or are more into seeing your house as like your own little fiefdom. You get to decide what it looks like. And you get to decide how you want to live and be in your space and how you want to interact with your space. So I hope that those of you that are homemakers, and I hope that those of you who have a home that you have to take care of, know that it's up to you to decide your level of tidiness or untidiness. It's up to you to decide how to make the space serve you and not you become a servant to the space in which you live. It needs to feel like a home. And for a lot of us, we are content with far more untidiness and, doom piles and, clutter and less perfection than we would see in the pages of Martha Stewart Living magazine. So I will link down below to Sarah Marshall's podcast episode. I thought it was great, both for those of us that are huge fans of Martha Stewart and enjoy watching her display of domesticity, even if we don't replicate it in our own homes. But also for those of us that are looking to strike balance between living a real human life in which there's messiness, untidiness, and imperfection, and the kind of cultural standard we are held against. So I just want to encourage you that if you think that your house needs to look a certain way, or perhaps you think that my house looks a certain way because you see certain corners of it, I hope this video has helped you feel more at peace and more at ease with having a house that's real, with real people and a real living going on in it. You don't have to have cleaning be your full-time hobby. You don't have to have, setting up little displays for Instagram be your full-time hobby. You can have a real life and have a real home. So please click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Please share your thoughts down below about keeping a home and what that means to you and what kind of external pressures that you have faced and how you can kind of release those expectations that are put upon you. I'll be back really soon. Thanks.